Have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot! Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant, Tillman, has to put it up for the buzzer. Banks it! Oh! He banks it!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. I am back here as I am every week towards the beginning of the week. Didn't get my normal Monday start due to a very long weekend that kind of fell into my weekday plan. So I did get the special honor of actually getting Zak Noble to come on my show today, even though we had it scheduled for yesterday. I mentioned it, Zak Noble. You guys may know him from the Noble Roosh podcast show on Ballislife. You can find that on Dash Radio. But very happy to have you as a special guest on my show once again, Zak. Welcome, man. What do you got going on right now? If you could just plug yourself a little bit, maybe your Twitter handle, social media, where all my listeners can find your content.
You got it. Appreciate you having me as always. Good chopping it up with you here. Basically, Noble Roosh Show is basically where you're going to find me. Ballislife, Noble, and Roosh, Roosh. Just talking all things around the league right now. I know Roosh has been pretty busy with the MLB World Series. He's a big Houston Astros fan. He's attended some of the games. So we'll get back to posting more consistent shows here coming up. We got some big guests, a couple players lined up this week, and should be cruising starting next week after the World Series is over. But loving the start to the season, man. Ready to dive in, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Awesome. And yeah, you mentioned I'm happy to have you here. As you know, if you guys follow Zak on Twitter, I mean, he just has a plethora of knowledge regarding the NBA. He covers the entire NBA. And on the Noble and Roosh podcast, as he mentioned, just plethora of guests. Most recently, I believe it was Joy Taylor, which that was a very awesome episode. And I'm also going to, question you a little bit later once we get into the Sixers on that Niang interview as well. You got to interact with him, interview him, which is very interesting in the city of Philadelphia these days. But let's dive right in, Zak. I wanted to get into with you any surprises early on this season. Could be disappointments, surprising hot starts, team-wise, player-wise, anything that you've seen that stuck out to you so far.
Yeah, early in the year, it's very rare I get surprised, to be honest, overall. I mean, the NBA, as you know, I mean, that's when the hot takes start flowing for people. They like writing people off and saying this guy's washed and, it's great hearing the takes flow. But you don't want to get caught up in that because you'll just get burned 2 weeks later. The end of the season never looks like the first month, and I can't recall a season that did. I mean, think of the 73 win Warriors, probably the last team that looked as good at the beginning at the end. It's really just one team. So really it's disappointments. I mean, that would surprise me that getting off to slow starts. Because I think I've always said this and I've always lived by this, that the beginning of the seasons where bad teams can take advantage of the good teams, and crazy shit happens all the time. And that's what makes it fun. Yeah. You're just watching rotations. You're watching coaching, who's getting the minutes early, and hoping some of these young guys pop off a little early. And the rookie class is looking phenomenal. And that's always surprising when rookies look great early on, because that's very rare. And I'm loving what I'm seeing right now from this rookie class. But from team-wise, I would say the Boston Celtics, Indiana Pacers, and Milwaukee Bucks are three teams that are probably the most surprising to me. They're all well under 500, besides Milwaukee's just 3-4. But Giannis should be able to win a bunch of games even by himself without Drew and Chris. It's just hey, he's not going necessarily as hard right now, but why would he?
Yeah. And regarding the Milwaukee Bucks, do you think that's just like it's obviously the injuries is playing somewhat of a factor into it? Do you think there's a little bit of a layover there just from winning the championship, playing deep into the playoffs, and then even as far as Drew and Chris, going over to Tokyo and playing in the Olympics, kind of continuing that into the summer? They didn't even get that 3-month break that most of the players got.
That's absolutely it. I mean, those guys, they've been around long enough where they know they don't have to turn it on the whole season. They don't. I mean, They know what they got to do to get to where they want to get to at the end of the day. And Milwaukee's going to take it really easy with those guys and just want to make sure they're ready when it matters. I mean, kind of like LeBron and Kawhi in the past years. And as teams have proven success in the playoffs, seeding doesn't matter as much as it used to for a lot of teams that have proven playoff success. So, I mean, the injuries do matter when you're not as deep, because Milwaukee's not that deep of a team, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, you can't get blown out by Minnesota. That's always a bad sign.
And we will get into Minnesota in a little while here. The other thing I wanted to ask you regarding that, you mentioned Boston. They're off to a slow start. I saw some quotes from Marcus Smart saying that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum need to pass the ball more. Any thoughts into that? Is that, kind of just beginning of the season madness? Or do you think that you could see that play out a little bit more throughout the season, a little bit of disgruntledness there?
Yeah, I mean, there's been rumors around that locker room for a year and a half now, I'd say. And the more quotes that come out about it, the more outspoken these guys get. I mean, it becomes more apparent they get sick of some BS around there, and a lot of it goes back to the most vocal guy, and that's Marcus Smart. They've made it very clear they're not moving Tatum or Brown. Those are their guys. Those are their foundational pieces. And why would you? I mean, that's arguably the most important position in the league right now, wings. And they play fine together. They're doing great individually. But yeah, I mean, Marcus Smart is not wrong. They do need to learn how to play off the ball better and with each other. I mean, I think the coaching change has a big part of it. I mean, assists are going down, and it's just overall they don't look like a cohesive unit. And I think a big part of that, honestly, is bringing back Al Horford, Dennis Schroeder coming in, but getting rid of Peyton Pritchard. I mean, he was such a valuable piece of that team, and they just decided to bench him. I mean, Dennis puts up decent numbers, sure, but does he really contribute to that much winning? I don't think so. He's more of a ceiling raiser than he is a floor raiser, and this team hasn't really proven that. I mean, they're just that cohesive of a unit yet. I mean, the wheels have been falling off for a little bit. Yeah, I've been saying trade Marcus Smart. He's the first guy to go for a while. A lot of the offense has been running through Al Horford, but it's tough, man, because they signed the extension for Marcus Smart this offseason, so you can't trade him. So you're stuck with this team unless you're trading a bunch of draft picks and younger guys. And I don't know. Who are you going to trade Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal when the Wizards are rolling? No. I mean, you don't have many moves right now to make if you're Boston. So you better hope this coach is the right one, because Tatum and Brown, I mean, they're guys that both want to win, and they want to win now.
And they should be winning. Right. I think that's the most confusing part. And you look at guys like Marcus Smart. When you look at it on paper, it looks like it should fit very nicely, just because what Marcus Smart is good at compared to what they're good at.
Right.
But, you mentioned just kind of the off fits, of like a Dennis Schroeder. Whenever you have, a guy like Peyton Pritchard, who he's not as good as Dennis Schroeder, obviously, but he made fit better in a world where you only really need, a 3-and-D type of guy that can run the offense coming from him.
I think his minutes, man, I think it's below 13 minutes. And the dude was so promising last year. I think he shot like 40% from 3 last year. It's not good. I almost
they need shooters around those, that core of star players there. The last thing I wanted to ask you before we end that segment, I know you said you don't get into like the surprise hot starts, as far as, throwing them down the tube or, believing in them too soon. What are your thoughts on the New York Knicks? Because they're a team that has come out strong. They're showing a lot of improvements in different areas that they lacked in last season. What are your thoughts on the Knicks so far this season?
So I love the Knicks. I'm a big Knicks believer. I've always been higher on them. I got in trouble like 3 years ago. And RJ Barrett, I mean, he's trending the right way. I've always been pretty bullish on him. Him and Julius are two guys I have been right on. And I think I'll continue to be right on them. I've been higher than the norm on them. But it's just those pieces they added. Kemba Walker, yeah, he's not necessarily coming around, but Evan Fournier has been so great for him. Yeah. He feels like he's got a new life, and I think it's these really good young players around him and really pushing him, motivating him, and it's just the energy in Madison Square Garden. I mean, that will, I think, make anybody younger. It's so great. But there's a lot of bing bongs flying around, so that's fun. I love those fans, man. People get sick of them and just annoyed, but I'm loving it. I know. I fully embrace it.
You got to for as bad of a franchise as they've been up until, these last 2 years.
Yeah, so they deserve it.
Deserve a little bit of success there in all reality.
Yeah. No, I don't care how annoying you think they are. I embrace it fully. But from a team perspective, yeah, I'm still a little wary, I guess, on what they're going to look like come playoff time. Julius Randle wasn't great in the playoffs last year. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it, but I usually give teams a pass year one for playoffs, or players a pass in year one. But with that said, I just think RJ growing, I think Evan Fournier and just better talent around them, I think it'll open up things and take less pressure off Julius to really perform in the playoffs. He hasn't had to carry as big of a load. So I think they can definitely finish where they're at right now, and that's the 3rd seed. What about you? You think they're real?
It's hard to say early on. They're showing a lot of the same tendencies as far as what they were good at last season, which is defense, which is something that Tom Thibodeau, drills, obviously, just playing smart, good defense. And I think whenever you have that, you have a chance of beating any team on any given night because they play hard. Mm-hmm. I saw, for instance, last week, the Sixers played the Knicks in Madison Square Garden in primetime game. And there's a lot of Sixers fans overreacting to that game. All that happened in that game in my eyes was the Sixers came out, they were lackadaisical, and the Knicks completely exposed them while having a pretty decent shooting night. But they're a good team. That's just simple as that. They can come out, they can impose their will because they have things that they're so strong at. You mentioned Kemba Walker. Adding him to the mix allows Derrick Rose to really focus on being that 6th man off the bench, which I think is ideal for him. You mentioned RJ Barrett, which is actually a great segue into the next section, because that was actually somebody that I was going to mention. When I'm asking you which 3 players do you have your eyes on this season, RJ Barrett's one of the guys I have my eyes on this season. And the reason for that, obviously, I don't know if I'm pretty sure I've told you before, but I'm a Duke fan as well. So I tend to follow the Duke guys around the NBA.
KU, man. Kansas.
I know, bro. I try not to bring it up. But, I'm following RJ Barrett this year. And what I'm really looking for is to see if he can take that next step, if he can be the second star beside, a guy like Julius Randle, who has entered himself into these upper level, perennial, all-star level conversations around the NBA in the last 2 seasons since joining the Knicks. Shooting 42.9% from the 3-point line right now, which is incredible for RJ. Given the deficiencies that he was, labeled with coming into the league as far as shooting from the outside, using his right hand, which is still something he needs to work on for sure.
Yeah, that right's not very good.
Him and Julius Randle need to work on that. But do you feel like RJ Barrett could step into that second star role for the Knicks? And how soon do you think that he could do it? Could he do it as soon as this season?
I had him pegged to do it this year. I thought he was going to be a borderline all-star this year. I really did. I still think he's trending that way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's on a 3-game tear that makes him look like an all-star, but he still had first game was okay. His next 3 were pretty terrible. And then his last 3 right now, he's starting to roll. So I think all signs are pointing to he's going to stay this way. It's just, to me, it's just all shot creation for him. I think he can do the rest. I mean, his playmaking, passing ability, and decision-making are still questionable, and it's how elite can that be, or if it can even be how far above average, I should say, versus elite. But, I think he's already a great shooter, great defender. It's the rest that's going to fill things in. How much can he bring outside of being a great defender and being a great shooter, knockdown shooter? But, I like what he brings. I think he's got an all-around game, and I just think he's a good fit next to Julius as well. I think they play pretty well off each other for now.
Yeah, and I think they're two players that can be stars in the league that just play incredibly hard. 150%. They're going 150% at all times, and that's something that I can really respect from the Knicks so far.
Their defense has been overall pretty bad though compared to last year.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. They're like the reverse last year. They were average offense. I mean, league wide at the end of the year, and an elite defense. Now they're an elite offense and pretty average on defense. I think that's gonna all even out. I think they're gonna be definitely well above average on defense by the end of the year. But it's going to really depend on the rest of the team when it comes down to defense. And Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, they're not necessarily defensive stoppers. So that's the route they went. They bought in on offense, and hopefully it pays off come playoff time. I think it will. I think it will work out for them. Mitchell Robinson looks like he could be more consistent as an anchor, and that's what they needed to.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Their defense relies heavily on Mitchell Robinson being in the middle there to kind of anchor that defense. But he's looked really good so far. It's just a matter of him staying healthy. Who are some other players around the league that you kind of have your eyes on this season for whatever reason, if you just want to kind of let us know why?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, when you ask that question and only can pick 3, I mean,
it's hard.
I watch everybody and anybody, and I love how much the league gets better every year. So I think like the players that hold the most implications for me, I thought they needed to break up the Jazz and the Mavericks this past offseason. I really wanted to see that happen, along with Philly and Portland. Those are the 4 teams I wanted to blow everything up before the year, and none of that happened yet. I mean, Philly's still going to happen, but just got to be a little more patient there. So for me right now, the one player that sticks out more than anything is Rudy Gobert, and he's looking like he's got the Olympic bump going. I mean, that Olympic boost that happens to a lot of players quite often. I mean, Patty Mills is getting the same bump. Keldon Johnson. Yeah. Those are the 3 players that come to mind when I think of the Olympic boost. But Rudy Gobert, though, he's just looking way more aggressive on the boards. I mean, he's averaging 17, 18 boards right now, which would be a career high. He's attacking way more, just being way more physical and manhandling. But yeah, I think it could be taking advantage of the early season too. He's just excited to be back, and I think he's pissed off from how the season ended as well. Yeah, I don't blame him, and how his Olympics ended. He definitely wanted to win, and he was close. He dominated in the Olympics as well. So the reason why I say Rudy Gobert, though, first off, is because I just think when I think of teams that have pressure on them, the Jazz have had the same core for so long, and another year of Gobert and Mike Conley and Joe Ingles and Bojan aging, that core is so goddamn old. It's now or never for these guys. Yeah. And they choked big time last year. And Yang talked about it on our show. It was awesome how in depth he went into about that. It was a devastating turn for them, but Rudy Gobert just needs to be able to hit his free throws in order to be more important in the playoffs, in my estimation. And I mean, he looks like he's in better shape. He's moving as good as I've ever seen. But again, it could be the beginning of the season and taking advantage of when guys really aren't giving it 100% right now.
And it's so funny you mentioned Gobert there, which I also noticed, which we'll get into right after this segment. But you do have him on your very fluid top 3 MVP power rankings in the NBA so far, which is it was very interesting until I actually took a look, went through Rudy Gobert's games so far this season. He is putting on a tear so far, and these are fluid rankings, so I cannot dispute his place in those rankings. But
he might be gone next week. Let's
right.
let's keep that fluid.
I got that from Stephen A. Smith. He's got these very fluid rankings on First Take. So
they change that tomorrow, but
I took that word. And ran with it. But Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. That is, you mentioned that core in Utah. That was 2 players that I had mentioned on my list here as well. Just seeing how that plays out this season. They're off to a great start once again, but they're always a great regular season team in the playoffs where we seem to see them melt. Another guy that I'm also looking at, during this season is Dame Lillard, a guy that, you mentioned it. You thought Portland should blow it up, whether it be, trade CJ McCollum or trade Dame Lillard. I personally, whether it was to Philly or not, I thought Dame Lillard should have requested a trade this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the stage he's at in his career. He deserves a real chance at winning. Obviously, I was, hoping for the Philly miracle there, the Philly special, and bringing in Dame in a Ben package, which doesn't seem too realistic these days. But Dame Lillard,
if they keep losing, he keeps struggling, man. You never know.
He is struggling as well. Do you think he made a mistake by staying in Portland after seeing the lack of moves they made in the offseason?
They were very, very marginal moves. Let's not get it twisted. But I thought they'd improve more if they played Nasir Little and Anthony Simons more, and they are. And those guys are blossoming. Those guys are improving. So there definitely should be better. It just all comes down to Dame Lillard, really. He's not playing good at all right now, and I'm not nervous whatsoever. But Portland's a team. Seeding matters. You got to give it everything all year for Portland. With that roster they have really very small room for error to get into that top 4 slot where they'd need to be to have a chance in the playoffs. To do any damage. So, I'm not impressed with Portland, what they got going on. I would love to see Dame ask out, but I would start by shopping CJ McCollum. His value is never going to be higher than it is right now. There's a few guys in the league that are like that, and there's one on my team as well. But CJ McCollum, man, he could impact a lot of teams. It's just we've seen this rodeo. We've done it how many times? It's like time to move on, and that's the piece they have that has the most value. But now that Nasir Little and Anthony Simons are showing they can do some things too, go out there, make a splash. Take it like Daryl Morey should not be balking at CJ McCollum. If that's the deal that's been probably most talked about, period, since the beginning. That just makes the most sense. It's so fair for both sides. It's so fitting and needed. And I just want to get this over with. And
this is like something that I really have a problem with within the Philadelphia fan base. Dealing with them all day, every day, just because I'm so entrenched. Excuse me, but CJ McCollum's value, he's so underappreciated by just casual basketball fan that it gets ridiculous at times. And it's, some say it's the shadow that he's playing in, Dame, Dame's shadow. I don't know if that's the case. I think he's just one of those guys that goes really underappreciated. You tend to see it from time to time. But as far as Ben Simmons for CJ, there's so many Sixers fans that say no to that trade. And if you could get CJ straight up for Ben, I find that amazing in reality. As far as
surprised if they do better than that, I really will.
You talk about
as close to an all-star as a non-all-star gets. He is.
Yeah, in the East, he's a perennial all-star.
He could be.
Right? So he could be. So I don't know. I would do that deal all day. I got to see CJ firsthand last night against the Sixers, which once again he even outperformed Dame, of course. And you mentioned Dame and his lackluster play. Is there any part of you that feels like Portland could get off to such a slow start that they would be willing to move Dame, even maybe for less than what they would have before? Is there any part of you that feels that way?
Here's the thing. He's being super vocal right now of being all in, 10 toes in Portland, as he says. He's being very, very vocal about it. And I mean, he's backed it up. He stayed his ass there this whole time. So it's really hard to see anything else. But I mean, every player ever that has been rumored this much and has ever sprinkled a little pixie dust out there that they would have an inkling to leave, besides maybe Kobe Bryant has left, so these players change their mind all the time. So if he changes their mind, if he loses like 2 games in a row and changes his mind saying he wants out next week, it wouldn't shock me whatsoever. I mean, he made it pretty known this summer he wanted out for the most part. So nothing would shock me, but as long as these guys are close to 500, I think Dame's going to want to stay there.
Yeah, and it's more likely they move CJ McCollum. It just makes more sense.
They just got to do it soon. I just, if you're not rolling, you just got to do something.
He's off to a hot start, and I got to watch Anthony Simons last night.
So good.
Oh my goodness, he had one. I believe it was on Matisse Thybulle as well, but he had him on skates. Took him down the lane and finished with his right. It was like a floating layup. I don't even know what to call it, high off the glass. But he's got talent. He can stroke it. And then Nasir Little has looked impressive as well. Next thing I wanted to get into, I mentioned earlier your top 5 MVP power rankings. Very fluid, very early power rankings, but nonetheless, we do have to do them right. I just wanted to go through each player in the top 5. You can kind of maybe just give an explanation why you have them where they are. And kind of let us know how you feel they're doing so far this season. So I'll start at number 5 with somebody we talked about already on this show, Julius Randle. What's your reason in having him up so high early on in this season?
Yeah, mainly, he's the number 1 guy in the Knicks, and they're off to a 3rd record in the East. I think signs are looking up for them. I don't see them honestly finishing past the 5 seed if they keep playing this way. I really don't. I like what they got going on. I think they're going to be a great regular season team. I think RJ is going to finish above 21 points per game, and he's 10 boards, 6 assists again. He does it all. His defense goes way under the radar, but just mainly stat line and team record, and just his overall value there is where I rank these guys. Definitely
get that. The next one, I'm sure everybody has this guy in their early on rankings for MVP. Ja Morant, 28 points a game so far, 5 rebounds, close to 8 assists per game. I feel like this is a no-brainer, but what have you seen so far from Ja this season?
He took the jump. He went freaking all the way for it. He's the most improved player of the year, you can say pretty comfortably right now, unless it's Miles Bridges. It's definitely one of those 2 guys. But, he's going to be in the MIP and MVP race like Luka was a couple years ago. But Ja Morant, man, I just wish Jaren Jackson would be taking the leap with him, because this team would be winning a heck of a lot more. Yeah. That Jaren Jackson contract's looking a little questionable at this time, but long season to go. I think they're going to be just fine there as long as Jaren stays healthy. But Ja just decided to up the attack more. Be way more aggressive in the shot. What is he shooting? I think like 38%. Definitely a career high from 3 right now. And he's attacking.
Yeah, you mentioned Jaren Jackson there, and I wanted to get your opinion on that contract. If you thought they should have, gave him that extension before the season, because I believe I listened to one of your shows with Roosh, and I believe it was like your preseason. You were going through each team in that division and kind of just giving an overview. What were your thoughts on that contract? I'm just curious.
You know, I mean, I didn't hate it. I've believed in Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, I expect him to be worth the contract at some point if he stays healthy, but it's definitely one of those you're paying for the potential.
Yeah.
I think, what was it, 100 mil? I think pretty even out there. 4 years, 100, 4 or 5 years, 100 mil. But yeah, I mean, for his production right now, it's obviously really steep. But yeah, you're paying for the potential there. And a team like Memphis, I mean, you kind of got to do that to keep them happy. I mean, they're a low market team where you got to retain your talent. So that's the price of business these days.
No doubt.
I liked Phoenix though, doing it as a non-Phoenix fan. I liked the balls. I mean, I would have liked to see more teams do it, and we're waiting for it. But yeah, it's interesting because Jaren's declined right now in points. He's declined in rebounds. He's declined in assists. He's basically declined everywhere. I mean, shooting 32.5% from field goal range, and he is not looking good whatsoever. But hey, I mean, it's the price of doing business, you know.
Yeah.
And
man,
could you really risk this guy like walking?
You can, because he has such a high ceiling if he can really, come to fruition in the NBA. But man, that's not what you want to hear starting out. It's still early though, so we got to give him some time.
My thing is though, is like I said about Phoenix, it's hard when it's your team to say you want him to do that, make that decision, especially if it's a player you somewhat believe in. I didn't want the Timberwolves to pay Andrew Wiggins, and that's one of the most notable fuck ups.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So Jaren Jackson, I mean, I think it was similar, but Andrew Wiggins was completely healthy. I mean, I honestly think the risk was very, very similar to the Andrew Wiggins. It's not nearly as much because Wiggins was making more money, but at the same time, Jaren Jackson, for his durability and availability, like, I think it evens out, but I pray for Memphis fans and Ja Morant's sake because I want them to be good. I like when Chris Vernon, my guy's happy down there because that dude brings energy. Bane, Melton, Adams is even looking good. They got a good thing going, so I don't want them to be stuck with a terrible contract, and that's what it's looking like right now.
No doubt. One last question about Ja. How far out ahead is he in that draft class as the best player? Obviously, I'm speaking on Zion, but how do you have him as a number one player out of that draft, and how far ahead do you think he is right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Zion workout before the game the other day, I mean, he's like 100, 130, 150 pounds, looking better, and I mean, but here's the thing: Zion, if he can get back to where he finished last year, I mean, they're pretty close right now. I definitely this Ja Morant is better than peak Zion last year, in my opinion, because Ja's translating to more wins and he's making others better. He's 4-3 right now. He's won some big games, and I'm a mentality guy. I really am. I judge players on their mentality more than most, and yeah, that's a hard thing to gauge, and just how you make others better around you. And I think Ja's got it all. Like,
I know what you mean by the mentality, because Ja definitely has.
He was a dog. I mean, he was attacking in preseason, man. I was scared. I wanted to bench him all preseason. How he was dunking on everybody.
Yeah, he's got the mentality. Something that I did not see out of Ben Simmons ever.
Ever.
See that deer in the headlights look in the playoffs, right?
All right. This Ja Morant, is he better than Derrick Rose? Peak Derrick Rose?
Oh, man. Peak Derrick Rose. I don't know. It's a conversation to have after this season, I think.
That's flaming. Now we're 6 games in, man. But his numbers right now, I mean, yes, it's a little different game than 8 years ago. I mean, there's way more possessions. Teams playing way faster than that Bulls team. Do I think Derrick Rose could put up 27, 28? Yeah, I do. In today's game, that Derrick Rose, but he's looking that good.
He is looking that good that you can even have that conversation and it not be laughed off, right? So, man, that is such a good comparison, even play style wise. I do love that. Number 3, we already talked a little bit about Rudy Gobert. I won't make you double dip in that. Number 2, we got Jimmy Butler. The Miami Heat are off to a great start. I thought he played very well last season. Obviously, didn't show up in the playoffs as much as he needed to. Thoughts on Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat so far this season?
He could easily be the MVP and number 1 on the list right now. He's the only other guy could accept that number 1. Ja's putting up number 1 numbers, but his record's why he's not number 1.
Right.
I'd say his numbers are better than Steph Curry, and same with Jimmy Butler. I just personally think the Heat right now have more supporting help than Steph Curry does, and that's why I have Jimmy behind Steph. That's the one player I got people coming at me for is Jimmy over Steph, but hey, I think end of the year, I think I might be looking closer to right on Steph above Jimmy, because here's the thing, Jimmy, we've seen stretches like this at times, and this is the exact stat line I projected for Jimmy Butler last year. I'm just happy to see he can actually do it through this amount of games. I mean, this is definitely the best stretch of ball he's ever played.
The 25, 7, and 5, or talking about efficiency?
Yeah, all of it, man. Basic numbers, advanced numbers, but he's shooting 38% from 3 and 53 from the field. Like 89 from the free throw line. Come on.
Yeah.
He's not getting to the line as much. I mean, still 7.5 attempts and only 1 attempt from 3. But I mean, hey, the numbers are the numbers right now.
Yeah, that's all we can go off, right?
Exactly. And he just makes guys around him better. Here's a hot take, but I've always believed this. Jimmy Butler is one of few guys that makes players around him so much better than others. Steph Curry doesn't really make players around him better. Steph Curry is more of a ceiling raiser than a floor raiser. Yeah. Yes, by his movement off ball, he makes players a little better, but not like Jimmy Butler, not like Harden, not like Chris Paul, not like LeBron. Jokic is the only other guy I'd throw in there really that truly make most players around them better.
Get other guys involved. I definitely get that. And then the final one, number 1 on your list, you mentioned it already, Stephen Curry. I really just want to ask you, your thoughts on what the Warriors and Steph, what they've been able to do so far this season without a healthy Clay. They're still waiting on James Wiseman, I believe, as well. So they're still missing a few key pieces that will ultimately play into their contending. But they're still at the top of the West. They're still, I believe, only with 1 loss so far. What are your thoughts on Steph and the Warriors, and maybe even what they can be once they get some of those guys back?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can be special. I said before the year they're a true contender with Klay Thompson. I really believe that. Their rookies haven't done a whole lot yet, and nor do I necessarily expect them to do this year. But Jordan Poole isn't taking that most improved player of the year leap that I was calling a bunch of people out on. Like, oh, he's going to be better than Klay Thompson, better than Andrew Wiggins this year even. But, like, that was one of the most hot early preseason
I saw that everywhere.
I heard. It was just preseason buckets. But anyways, this team is just deep. I mean, that's what they are. I mean, they play just solid basketball on both sides of the ball. I mean, they play for each other. I mean, that's what they are, man. They're just a complete team that's super deep. They probably the deepest team, I mean, in the West, maybe the league. They're up there, top 5 for sure. And when Wiseman gets going, and I think he will, I think they can for sure be a second round Western Conference Finals contender. I think they're going to be great all year, and I pegged them to be pretty good. So
love it, and I'm excited to see the Warriors back in playoff contention, getting guys like Steph, Clay back in the playoffs, back in prime time. That's what they deserve. And that's what we deserve as basketball fans for sure.
Let me ask you, looking over my list, who do you think can stay or make a leap?
Out of these 5 guys, or
those 5 or the entire list? I mean, who do you think is going to stay or drop?
Well, I definitely see Steph staying close to the top, in that top 3 all season, as he usually does. Jimmy Butler, it's interesting. The Heat are off to a stronger start than I expected. I just, figured, some of the pieces that they added in there would take a little bit of time to become cohesive, but they're kind of getting ahead of the program. I think Jimmy Butler can stay in the conversation, at least in that top 10 conversation throughout the season. Rudy Gobert, I'm not a Gobert guy.
No, I'm not really either.
It's why it threw me off when I looked at it. I was like, no way. But then I looked at what he's been doing. It's totally reasonable. But I don't
give him his props while you can give him.
Exactly. Be fair while you can, right? But Rudy Gobert, no, I don't ultimately see him staying in it. Julius Randle's interesting. If they can stay consistent, his numbers, I don't expect them to drop too much, honestly. That's, kind of what maybe the assist numbers, getting involved as a facilitator, but he's a guy that does a lot of everything for the New York Knicks. They rely on him a lot.
I'll tell you, man, that was one of my biggest gripes about last year's race is Julius Randle should have been top 5, maybe even number 3. I thought he put that good of a year. I mean, the dude averaged 25, 10, 6, and he's putting up better numbers outside of scoring. But, I mean, his efficiency's still there, and free throw percentage went up a lot. Career high rebounds, assists, blocks. Steph, though, I didn't think he deserved to be number 2 or 3 or whatever he finished last year. And can't be in the top 5 if you don't make the playoffs. Come on.
I feel that. And, that was one of the biggest arguments. Everybody was saying, if they did make the playoffs, he would have been the consensus MVP. But we can't operate off of ifs, right?
Right.
But no, Ja Morant, the other guy in the top 5. It'll be interesting to see if his numbers can stay this way. As far as efficiency, I don't know if that can keep up throughout the season. I imagine he will go through a slump eventually, but
me, I think his numbers can stay there. I just don't know if the team wins will stay there. You got to be in the top 6 to have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not sure Memphis, they're going to have a hard time fighting for a playoff spot, let alone getting into the top tier of the Western Conference there. But no, I think these are spot on. I think you'll see the guys like Giannis, Jokic, some of those guys start to creep back into the conversation, even the KDs of the world. But
everybody comes at me, where's Giannis? Yeah, I mean, I have him 23 right now, which is insane. Yes, he's not the 23rd best player, but his team's 3 and 4. He made me give him these expectations. Okay, it's not my choice. He did this to me.
It's understandable, but it's early.
He'll be here next week, man.
You got to be transparent.
He'll be top 10 next week. This is fluid as hell.
So the next thing I wanted to get into a little bit of the Minnesota Timberwolves with you. Obviously, I know you're a Timberwolves guy, a Timberwolves fan. What have you seen so far from the Timberwolves this season? Have you been impressed? Are they kind of, showing you any similar tendencies from previous seasons? Or do you think that they are taking steps in the right direction?
So I was super jacked up about this team before the year, and most excited I've been about a team since 2004 outside of the one Jimmy Butler year. With that said, I'm okay right now. I'm pretty flatlined from where my expectations are. I'm excited about our defense. I mean, we're literally top 3, top 5, you could say, in the league in defense right now. Do I think that's going to stick? Hell no. I'll be very happy if we stay in the top 15 from where we're at right now. Very, very happy about that. I mean, I'll be ecstatic if we stay in the top 10. But our offense right now is like bottom 5 in the league. I mean, bottom 10. I mean, depending what numbers you value and whatnot. So I thought it was going to be the exact opposite, to be honest. I really did. But it's early. We got guys that are putting up numbers. Before the year, though, I said a successful season would be either making the playoffs or else Ant just taking that leap, proving to be that dude, and Jaden looking better and just figuring that stuff out. And taking the leap, I think that's for sure happening. It's going to happen. I mean, the dude's averaging 23. His efficiency is terrible right now, and he's showing he's great without the ball. He's playing pretty solid defense. I mean, he's looking – you could argue, I mean, if you only looked at his stats, you'd think he's like Andrew Wiggins year two, but no. The mentality's there. He grinds. He plays hard. He says the right things. He can be a leader. I mean, his press conference aren't just funny, which they always are. I mean, they're not just entertaining. The dude, there's substance to it, especially after losses. And unlike his number one guy, Cat, there's issues with his pressers. But that loss really irked me last night. It really set me off. We got blown out by the Magic. And we never should have lost to the Pelicans. We never should have lost. We should be honestly 6-0 right now.
Yeah.
It's insane to think about. We could easily be 6-0 right now. We lost a close one to the Pelicans. We let that one slip away. We lost at the buzzer to the Denver Nuggets on Saturday, which I was at. And then last night get blown out by the Magic. That's the sorry-ass Magic, who are going to probably be the top 3 worst team in the league this year. So things aren't looking good, to be honest. Outside of Ant, and he's had a couple bad games now, and I do think Ant will get back on track. These guys just aren't playing for each other. The structure isn't there, speaking high level. And so with thinking about where the defense will probably end up, offense has to be top 15. It really does. It's got to get there, because if we play this exact same way, if like the numbers stay this way, we'll win 37, 38 games, which isn't terrible. But I personally am on board the way things are going right now. I said before the year, if people hate me around Minnesota for this, but I've been on sell Cat high. I mean, his value is only going to be this high for so much longer. He's still a unicorn to some people, and teams absolutely melt for this guy for some reason. And he's playing a lot more aggressive. So if you're just watching highlights, you don't understand necessarily what's going on, why the results are turning out this way. Well, look in the mirror at that dude. So I'm all on board selling high, because I think his value is only going to go down at this rate.
That's going to be my question to you. So
through 6 games, I truly think the Wolves are going to finish right around 35, 37 wins right now. Before the season, though, when we're 0-0, I said 44 wins in the 8th seed. So my expectations have gone down quite a bit.
Interesting. And, I was going to ask about Cat. So I know you said you would sell high. Do you think that the Timberwolves would do that?
Hell no. Maybe at the end of the year. And that's the thing, though. Like, I like that Cat likes being in Minnesota. I think he likes playing with his friend D'Angelo Russell. But with D'Angelo playing bad, you can tell Cat getting frustrated. And, I mean, D'Angelo's been terrible. And I feel like I'm a D'Angelo guy. I like him, and I want nothing but success for him. But if D'Angelo declines, I mean, this team declines, because he's second highest paid player. We need him to be good. So right now, I mean, their value, I personally think both of them will only go down from this point forward. If things don't, start looking up. I mean, it's got to change. Minnesota just has such small margin of error. That's why very few teams it matters this early in the year. But the Timberwolves, it does. I mean, you got a roster. This is one of our deeper teams that we've had in a very, very long time. You got to win these games that are close, and these against really bad teams. And it's been 3 bad losses this year out of 3.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely concerning. I definitely get where you're coming from, especially when you're talking about getting blown out by the Orlando Magic.
We're Ben Simmons away, but
hey, that's what I was going to ask you next.
D'Angelo Russell isn't looking like a Ben Simmons trade piece right now.
You're keeping us going here, because as we move on to the Sixers, I did want to ask you. We talked a little bit. I think it was maybe in the offseason. I'm not sure. We talked Ben Simmons going to Minnesota, potential places for Ben Simmons to be traded to. Are you more or less willing to send like a premier package for Ben Simmons? I can't remember if you said before you wouldn't trade D'Angelo Russell for him.
You remembered correctly. I said no earlier. I did. And I was pretty bullish on that. But I'm all in. Like right now, because I'm desperate right now. Like where things are trending, where things are at. I'll even throw in more picks. Because here's the reason. I know we're not trading Cat. I know we're not selling high. So we need something to lift this floor and maybe tap into our ceiling at all, and that's Ben Simmons. I mean,
Ben Simmons a game changer for as far as his fit with the Timberwolves.
Perfect. He's everything to us.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm liking the crumble in Indiana too, because Miles Turner's another target for us. But there's a lot of packages out there for Cat I would take, but there's no point in talking those because I know we're not going to do that. We're not going to consider it. It would be D'Angelo first, and until Ben Simmons get traded elsewhere, until we strike out there, they'll be our next bright, shining object that we need to sell hope to Minnesota fans.
And that's something that I always
sad, bro.
I always believed that Minnesota was a good spot. Just because it is a smaller market, he would get there. He would get a little bit of time to grow as well with those guys. So he wouldn't get there and expect to be contender, immediately. He would get some time to grow his game there, kind of figure out where he fits, especially offensively. That's the main thing. He's got to figure it out offensively. But definitely thought, Minnesota makes sense. And when you think about what the Sixers need, and this is something we're going to get into now, a starting point guard, right? If you're one of those people that thinks Maxey would be better suited coming off the bench, which I do truly believe that.
Really?
Maxey has looked pretty good starting. That's actually the first thing I wanted to ask you about regarding the Sixers. They're 5-2 without Ben Simmons to start the season. They were able to beat Portland last night without Toby or Embiid or Simmons. Tyrese Maxey, he's averaging 14 points per game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 49% from the field, 31.6% from 3. What have you seen from Maxey that you like so far, and how do you feel about his fit, whether it be in the starting lineup with those guys or it be a spark plug coming off the bench?
So he's definitely trending the right way, okay? And that's all you want to see as young players. I mean, you just want to see linear growth. That's the goal and the hope. But I was lower on Maxey before the draft than most. I'll admit I'm looking wrong on him, but I am looking, I think, kind of right in the fact that I'm not positive he's a starting point guard for a long time in this league. I mean, on some teams, maybe. I think he can be a great 6-man, but I'm just still not sold on his playmaking and passing abilities all around. And I think he's a good scorer. I think he can do that a little bit higher than most, but his decision making is not elite or anything like that. And I'm not. There's a long ways to go before I'm all in on Maxey. We'll put it that way. But he's trending the right way. So at the end of the day, they're 5-2. They can experiment right now. They're winning some games. They're not playing good, and that's a lot of people, I'm sure, are surprised by that. But it's early in the season. Anybody can win, especially if you got talent. Philly's got talent. Yeah, and Embiid's not even playing great. So Tobias Harris is looking really good. I like him. Team's gonna be fine. It's just got to move on from Ben sooner than later.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we're all waiting for. You know what I mean? I feel like everybody knows this is not the finished product as far as what the Sixers are playing right now. So I just want to be clear. So would you potentially, or would you look at the hole on the Sixers as the starting point guard spot, though? As far as just
that's a real question. Yeah, that's fair. I would just look for the best available. That's where I'm always at. Like, yes, fit matters, and especially on the Sixers team, where the fit has been the struggle between Embiid and Simmons a bit. But they did everything they could for the guy. I mean, like Embiid said, he wasn't lying. They got him the shooters he needed. It just didn't work out. So that could happen in Minnesota too. As good as I would think that fit may be, it just might not work out because he might just not be that guy. And it just could be an overpaid player. But with that said, I still would do it. With that said as well, yeah, Philly isn't going to have a ton of options. They really aren't. So you got to go with the best available if Daryl ever wants this over with, or it's going to wait the 4 years and just like sit in Ben's ass at home.
Hear that quote? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I was like pulling on my hair when I heard, drawing it out for 4 years. Like, do not do this.
The guys they want are all struggling, so that helps. I mean, Fox, Dame, come on, Siakam,
get it done. Get it done, man. And maybe that's what's going on. Maybe too many trade rumors going on that it's got other guys in their head. But yeah. So you mentioned Daryl Morey. Do you think that there's any chance that he can get a quality return at this point, or is it very just situational if Ben comes back and plays? Saw the other report that came out today when I had just thought things were kind of going in the right direction to him maybe playing and improving his value. Apparently he won't meet with Sixers doctors regarding his mental issues that he's got going on right now, his depression, which, to each their own. I'm not going to sit here and judge him for the issues that he's dealing with right now, but it just looks a lot rocky. It looks as rocky as it was before Joel Embiid came out to the Sixers fans and said, "Hey, let's support our guys." So,
mental health, I don't take lightly. Having my own thing. I mean, everybody's got their thing. I mean, some people got it worse than others. Let's be honest, but did seem a little fishy to me. And hey, and that's just what we don't know the exact details.
Yeah.
Just like, for instance, it's hard to really judge Daryl Morey on his trade offers because we don't know his exact trade offers he's been given. He just says he wants a big return. Okay, we don't know. We can't judge him on what he's been offered. And that's one thing I'm not going to do is sit here and say, oh, he's done this completely wrong because the team's winning. It's really not impacting this team a whole lot. I mean, they're 5-2 and they're okay in the standings. If it seemed like the team was like melting emotionally and this was taking a big toll on them, yeah, they did the wrong thing. I mean, if it was happening like what was happening in Houston, even though I think the situation is almost worse, I mean, it's hard to compare the two, but I'm saying team result-wise, it's not happening so far. So you do you, Daryl, but at the end of the day, he also said you can't miss out on Embiid's peak. Well, his peak is right now, and it's not probably going to last long. So anything is better than zero, and I truly believe that. So cut your losses because I don't think the value is going up at all. Maybe when more players are available come December, but if it gets past like December 31st, because more players become available, I think it's December 6th. Yeah. So if it gets past that, it's questionable for sure.
Not looking good.
Right.
And that was my biggest thing, with all the reports about Morey, and I've been avidly trying to support Morey and the Sixers. But I mean, there's just so many question marks when you hear rumors like Malcolm Brogdon and a 13th pick offered, towards the beginning of the summer. Obviously, I don't know if that was true, but I'm taking that trade all fucking day, like literally. So I'm looking back at, just little rumors like that, the CJ McCollum rumors that have been throughout the summer. I'm taking that all day. Right. But then when I hear him in that,
if it's real.
Yeah, if that's real. Then I hear him in the press conference or on the radio, talking about how he's not taking back, rotational pieces or bench or role players. Those guys aren't role players. So
Ben Simmons is a role player. He's one of the greatest role players ever. I'm sorry, but you watch your terminology. Words matter here, and
they do.
You're considering he's a role player in the same sense that Malcolm Brogdon is. Yes, Ben Simmons is a little better, sure, but Malcolm Brogdon might be a much better fit, and he sure is when he's actually playing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've been struggling with Daryl Morey throughout this situation. Now, maybe it's not even his fault. Maybe it hasn't been those guys that's been offered. The last thing, well, I guess two more things I wanted to ask you about. The first being Georges Niang. You got a chance to interview him in the off season. He talked about his transition from Utah to Philly and kind of what he's expecting there. Any takeaways from that interview that you're kind of looking back on now and seeing his performance so far this season for the Sixers? Because he's been a very underrated signing, underrated acquisition for the Sixers around the NBA, I believe. After hearing that interview, which gave me so much insight into kind of who Niang is, aside from what he's contributed, numbers wise to the Utah Jazz and even Iowa State before he entered the league. Any takeaways that you've seen throughout this season so far, just from what he talked about in that interview?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up and the words for sure. That's the thing. If you come on our show, you're going to take a leap. It's just the circle of life. It's what happens. But that's what I tell these people too when they're debating coming on, what have you. But with that said, Georges Niang is the perfect fit for any team. I mean, I truly believe after the year he had last year, I mean, he was going to have this year regardless of where he went. He's just a guy that every single team needs. And like we said on the show, he'd be at 20 minutes, and we spoke it into existence. He's at 19.9 as we speak.
Yeah.
He's averaging 11 points. He's averaging 2 boards and 2 assists. And he's shooting 43 from 3. Yeah. The dude's going off, and he had 21, I think it was last night.
Yeah, 21, 5 and 5 last night.
Yeah, that's a line, man. And 5 and 5 out of a guy that plays mostly in the corner. Come on. So it's that. Those are the type of wins where you can cut losses on Ben Simmons a little bit, where Maxey's improving. I still want more out of Thibault. I really do. I was way higher on him than most during the draft. But hey, maybe he's just that defensive guy you need going forward, and he is what he is, Yeah. I like to say he's basically Tony Allen with a video camera or a YouTube account. That's what Matisse Thibault is.
I did see you say that before. It's so true because he just I don't know. I don't know if it's his feel, if he's just kind of dealing with like something similar to Ben Simmons where he's kind of shy offensively. I don't know what it is, but I
think he just knows his game like Ben Simmons too. Like he might just suck offensively.
Yeah, that might be.
And that's why I hate people when they judge Ben Simmons. It's like you're expecting him to be somebody he's not. Like embrace what he is, and he was really, really good at what he did do. Yeah, he didn't do it enough. You got to attack and be more aggressive. That's what he could have done, but that's up here too. So where do we go with Georges Niang here? It's like, give him more time. I mean, give him Furkan's minutes. Shit, I think he plays better defense than Furkan. I mean, he's a way better passer, way underrated passer. You can get even more out of Georges Niang, and super valuable signing for what, $6 million a year? Come on.
Yeah. And he's a
$3 million a year. Holy shit.
Yeah, even less than right, half of what you said. So he's been such a quality signing. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you. You mentioned more minutes. I also think, you look at what this team lacks sometimes, and he could be the perfect, maybe not a starter. He doesn't need to start. He should definitely come off the bench, I believe. But maybe as a closeout guy, that you can slide him into that closeout unit, just keep him in a corner where I hate to say it, he's been more reliable as a shooter than Danny Green this season as well. And
washed and old.
Danny Green has been a foul machine throughout this season. He can't stay out of foul trouble. But, just using Niang as that, like, stretch forward. He's kind of, people keep saying he's, like, kind of fulfilling what Mike Scott was doing last year. Mike Scott wasn't contributing anything last year.
Yeah, he's just.
So that I don't even
like. He's just loved by the fan base.
But yeah, no, Niang, he's shown some great ability. I mean, it's stuff you kind of, unless you're watching him specifically throughout a season in Utah, You really haven't seen the type of stuff that he was even doing last night since he was in college, where he was that star player. But just like driving to the lane last night, he finished probably 3 and 1s in the lane last night, which I just
sneaky touch. He's got sneaky
touch, man.
Yeah.
He's got a nice awkward floater.
The dude can do it all. He just doesn't have the speed of the NBA game to do more than like 25 minutes a game, but he can do it all. I mean, just on certain levels. And it's so you got to use him properly. But his personality, though, he's a student of the game. He loves it. He embraces the noise, the crowd, and he's just so calm and cool and collected, man. He's perfect for this team, and
he is.
You only need one Embiid on this team, one boisterous personality, and let the other guys just be chill when it matters and gamers. That's what he is.
Exactly. And that's what I love about him. He's a gamer. That's what it comes down to.
Andre Drummond, though. Wow. Resurgence.
Yeah, what are you thinking about that fit so far, especially in that backup center role? He filled in nicely last night.
To me, Andre Drummond, I mean, I could say it's more about minutes, and it's knowing his role consistently. But the Lakers tried to give him a role. I think this year, I can't put it on that. I'd be wrong for saying that, because the Lakers did try. Cleveland tried. They gave him a lot of minutes, and he's put up decent numbers on all these teams. It's just, he was terrible on defense.
Yeah.
And so Philadelphia is just using him properly, so they're making him look good. Yes, he looks a little more spry. He's moving probably the best he has in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's because, I mean, he's playing with these young guys. For one, he's not playing with these older teams, not lineups with no Kevin Love or LeBron or Dwight Howard, those type of lineups, and just really weird. But he's being pushed by these young guys, and he knows it's now or never for him. I mean, just the talk around him, surrounding him. I mean, I think he's a guy that's pretty plugged in online too. So it's like, you got to show up now. You got to be in shape. You got to be ready to go. But I think he's gotten over criticized the last few years, but he was a good signing. He's looking good.
Yeah. And, he's another one of those acquisitions that kind of makes up for the loss of Ben Simmons so far.
Yeah, cut those margins.
Yeah, you got to cut the margins, man. The last thing I wanted to ask,
them right now.
the last thing I wanted to ask you, Zach, before I get you out of here, man. I know we got some hoops to watch tonight. That loss last night for Portland, they did not have anybody on the injury list. Was that a bigger loss for Portland last night, or was that a bigger win for Philly without Embiid, Ben, and Tobias?
I'd say that's a great question. That's a great question. And I don't really like saying that, because of course it's a great question if somebody's asking a great question, a question period. It's just always something that's pissed me off. But with that said, gun to my head, I'm going to say that's more important for Philly. I really am, because I don't think Dame's going anywhere unless they go on like a 5-game losing streak. And I definitely could see a world where Dame flip-flops soon if they keep losing.
Yeah.
But we're a ways away from that, where Philly, I mean, they need every win they can get without Embiid. And I don't think they have a ton in them without Embiid. I hope to be wrong, and I could be wrong about that, as long as the rest keep playing well. And I mean, Doc Rivers did win a bunch of games with Tobias Harris being his best player in Los Angeles, along with Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah.
So could he do it this year without Embiid for a long time? Probably, maybe. I mean, I think he's that good of a coach, but it's going to come down to coaching his ass off. It really will. Because Maxey's too young to really be that big of a contribution to winning teams. So it's just going to be a group, collective unit, and Doc coaching his ass off, because you know what you got here, and I don't think it's enough to win without a great coach.
And Doc has definitely had his question marks, but
playoffs.
He has a hell of a resume. But yes, playoff. inconsistencies have been worrisome, and we've seen it so far in Philly as well. Just off that first time in the playoffs last season. But that is all I got for you tonight. Well, let me ask you, which games are you kind of keeping your eyes on tonight?
Yeah, tonight I would say I was really looking forward to Miami and Dallas. 29-22 right now as we speak, and in the first. But outside of that, I think Sacramento and Utah should be a close one. De'Aaron Fox needs a bounce back here soon.
Yeah.
Get headed in the right direction, or else Sacramento could start trending the wrong way. They got to capitalize on Harrison Barnes going off right now because he's having a career year so far through 6 games. They're working those guard rotation pretty well, I'd say, and working Davion Mitchell in there. Buddy Hield's not getting pissed off right now, and so I was really worried about that guard rotation and just Luke Walton in general. But it's never thought it'd be this way. De'Aaron Fox starting slow. So that's going to be my game of the night, I'd say, just because Utah's been looking too good. Sacramento, it's coming out party for De'Aaron Fox tonight. Let's speak it into existence.
Love it, man. But I am not going to keep you any longer, Zach. I appreciate you coming on my show. Everybody that tuned in tonight, thank you. Be sure that you are following Zach on Twitter at Zak Noble. It's spelled out right on the screen there. I will also link your podcast and your show in the comments after this show as well. Make sure everybody that watched tonight, make sure you can check out Noble and Roosh Show on Ballislife network on Dash Radio. Like Zach said at the beginning of the show, tons of great guests, quality guests, a lot of actual hoop heads, actual basketball players that come on the show. So make sure you're checking all of his content out. But Zach, once again, thank you so much for joining me, man.
My man, always a pleasure. Anytime you want me. With that said, I got Naz Reid coming on Thursday. Check us out and hit me up on Twitter. Let's chop it up, people.
Love it. All right, Zach. That's going to be it for tonight, man. Peace.
Later. Take care, bro.
Take care. All right, guys. And thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Once again, very appreciative of Zak Noble joining the show. Somebody that I like to always pick his brain on the NBA and what's going on around the league. And he'll be on the show again. I love interacting with Zach. As you guys can see, he's just got a plethora of knowledge there. Before we get out of here tonight, I do want to go ahead and plug my Manscaped crew. As you guys know, DSM Media is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code Scotty at manscaped.com. Manscaped engineered the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and an incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. This upgraded trimmer includes a multi-function on and off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And did I mention the wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Scotty at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using code Scotty. That's SCOTTY. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will certainly thank you. And yes, that is a very new code that we're using on DSM. We have officially partnered up with Manscaped, and we will have our own individual show tags to get the 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. So make sure you're using that Scotty code. Make sure you're getting your 20% off and make sure you're keeping your balls comfortable there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. It is always a pleasure. And make sure you're tuning in next week, as well as the rest of this week. We got plenty going on at DSM Media. Make sure you're following DSM Media at DSM_media on Twitter. You'll find our link tree there. You'll find us on every single social media platform as well as podcast platform. That's going to be it for me tonight. Your host, Scotty. You can find me on Twitter at Scotty Drown. Have a great rest of your night, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.